All right, guys, camera's running again, so no stupid stuff. All right, so the last presentation of the day, or most of the rest of today, is on migration. Cliff mentioned a couple things to me. Excuse me. When I tell you guys to email me questions, he said don't email me questions. He said to email him questions, he'll consolidate them all, get them to me, and then I'll give him one big email response back with all the questions that will get posted somewhere. So y'all will have all the questions and answers instead of me individually responding back to everybody. So that's better.
Yes, it's cliff@wmug.co.uk. Just send them to me. I'll consolidate and get some answers from Wally, and then we'll publish them on the site, so we can see the questions and the answers that Wally's going to do.
I remember we did that last year
Yeah.
after the Belfast. So
Yeah.
I do recall that. And then what we'll do is, as soon as I'm done with this presentation, we'll do the giveaways, and then people want to leave, they can. If you want to stay back and ask other questions, want me to show things until we're kicked out. I think we're kicked out at 6 tonight, so we have to be out by 6 p.m., but I'll hang around till then. I don't fly till 5:20, I think it is, tomorrow, so I got time. Not as much time as you might want, though. All right, so migration. So I showed you the R3 stuff earlier today, and then we just got done talking about vNext. So what we now want to show you is how to get from that SP2/R3 state, whatever you have, over to the vNext environment. So this will talk about an overview of migration, which is not that exciting. It's different things you have to think about. And we'll get into specifically about how you do a migration from 2007 over to vNext, and what you have to think about and so on. Then migration scenarios, so a couple of different sample customers, and how they're configured in 2007 today, and how they would migrate to vNext. As far as what their hierarchy changes would look like, and then what the process flow is on those. One a small customer, one a little bit bigger customer. And then specifics on object migration. So what about software updates? What about software packages and so on? Some specifics there. All right, so terminology. I've mentioned this throughout the day, but in this context of this presentation, when we say content, that means your package files. So the actual binaries that you ship out to clients from DPs. So software updates, OS images, or software packages themselves. Objects. Objects are the admin created things that define objects, which is a lousy definition, but the things in the console that you guys create that clients need access to. Collections, package definitions, software update, metadata, and so on. So the things that clients would utilize in your environment, configuration items, configuration baselines, and so on. Server settings, site system roles, how they're configured, is bits turned on, is it an NLB, what's your SQL Server instance for your SQL reporting box, and so on. So all the settings for your site systems. And then client information. So client information is the GUID, the inventory, and the compliance state information. So those are the 4 different categories of things that you have to think about during your migration. Now, migration planning. So as you're going through migrating, you think about those 4 different categories. The 4 different areas are clients. Obviously, your end result is that all your clients are managed. So they're currently managed by ConfigMgr 2007, or some of you SMS 2003. And you get them up to a vNext state to take advantage of all these cool features. So how are you going to migrate clients? What clients have you migrated? Which ones haven't you migrated? Objects. Clients refer to some sort of objects. They have software distribution packages advertised to them, software updates that are deployed to them. They have OS images that they've been using, DCM baselines, and so on. All those different things that clients use to report back data to you guys as administrators. Inventory and compliance data. So you need that information for your clients so you know what the state is of your clients. So how do you get that inventory and compliance data from your old environment to your new environment? And then your server infrastructure. Obviously, when you migrate clients over, you have to have the appropriate server infrastructure so they can still be managed appropriately. Okay, so those 4 different quadrants. First is server infrastructure. No sense migrating over clients until you have the appropriate server infrastructure there. So when you guys move from SMS 2003 to ConfigMgr 2007, there are 2 different ways to migrate. In-place upgrade, side by side. When we polled our ConfigMgr vNext TAP customers, more than half of them said that they use side by side, even in 2003, going up to 2007, even though there's an in-place upgrade. And they use side-by-side primarily because that was the same time they got a hardware refresh, because it had been a few years. So you got brand new hardware, plus the site had been installed for 3 or 4 years. They had a bunch of old junk in the database that didn't want anymore. Old packages, old deployments, whatever that were invalid. And nobody just gone in there and cleaned things up. They just wanted to start clean. Obviously, if you do an in-place upgrade, then you have all the same site systems there. So you use the same hardware you had, and you had all the same data that you had before. Just to set the stage, in vNext there is no in-place upgrade. vNext is side-by-side. So you do not upgrade from 2007 to vNext, you migrate from 2007 to vNext. But this presentation is going to show you, hopefully, how painless that side-by-side migration is going to be. Your deployment objects. Again, before you get clients moved over, you want to make sure they have all the objects they need, all the compliance settings, so that you can make sure your clients are still compliant. All the software updates, so anybody got an old OS deployed to them that they can get up to speed where they need to be. All your deployment, your packages, and so on. All that stuff has to be there to make sure that clients can manage once they get migrated over without you having to recreate everything. In the migration or upgrade from SMS 2003 to ConfigMgr 2007, if you did it in place, you kept all your collections. You kept all your packages, your software updates, your deployments and advertisements and so on. All that stuff was retained in an in-place upgrade. Side by side, you lost everything. So you had to recreate stuff manually, or somebody up in, or down from here, down in Central Europe created some unsupported tools to help you migrate over objects from SMS 2003 over to ConfigMgr 2007. And you could use those unsupported tools, or third parties had some tools as well. We as a product group didn't give you anything to help you move those objects over from old infrastructure to new infrastructure. Our guidance was, if you want to do that, you have your 2007 or your 2003 old environment set for brand new 2007 environment. You attach your 2003 as a child to your 2007, so it would replicate up or forward up all the inventory and status and compliance data that you had. So now I've got all my client data up here in the brand new site. You would break your parent-child relationships with the two standalones again. Then I would upgrade my 2003 to 2007 doing in-place upgrade. So now they're both the same version of software. And then I would attach my new site I want to create, or I did create, as a child to my old site, my 2003 that was upgraded. So it would replicate down all my collections, my packages, my advertisements, and so on. Then once I got all that data, management data down, I would break my parent-child relationship. They're two standalone again. I would migrate over my clients as I upgraded them from old to new, and then I would just repurpose the old server. That was a long, complex process, but it did do the job. You got all your stuff over in a supported manner, but it just took a long time to do so. So again, we have no in-place upgrade. So you are doing a side-by-side with vNext. However, we do have now in-house or in-box tools to migrate over all your objects from 2007 to v.next. And I'll walk you through that in the presentation demos. Inventory compliance, you're doing side-by-side, so you're not maintaining anything, which is okay, because it's a brand new SMS DefMoff replacement, new baselines and stuff that you're working with. So when your clients get upgraded from 2007 to vNext, and they get migrated from your old site to your new site, they're going to recreate all your inventory data. They're going to run the new baseline security scannings and so on that you have. So everything will get recreated. So it'll happen automatically. But no, we're not migrating over anything as far as your inventory data and compliance data. And then clients, we used to, back in the SMS 2.0 days, we used to automatically upgrade your clients. So we upgraded from RTM to Service Pack 1. Within the next 24 hours, all your clients would check in, and all of a sudden, 10,000 clients are upgrading from RTM to SP1 at the same time. And you guys killed us for it. You hated that. So in 2003, and we did that through all the 2.0 life and previous versions. So in 2003, we got rid of the automatic upgrade. So we put you guys, the admins, in charge of when your clients get upgraded. So the most common way was software distribution. You create a package, you create a program, create an advertisement, hopefully the built-in version of those, but you create those, you deploy them out, because you had control when things happen through the advertisement, scheduling, and you go by collection and so on. So a great way of doing upgrades. Client push is also a very cool way of doing upgrades. You just have to tell it to always reinstall or always install upgrade or repair client. As of 2007, we had great group policy technology, so that could be an upgrade process. Software update point. If you've never used a software update point for installing the client or upgrading clients, this is a great way to upgrade clients as well. Just publish the new version of the client to your software update point. Next time the client scan gets WSUS, they see an automatically approved mandatory application update. They say, okay, I have to run that, it's not been installed, and they kick off the patch. The patch is CCM setup.exe, which is our installer. And all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, you get a brand new client, or an upgraded client. Works great. So, you choose whatever method you want to migrate from ConfigMgr 2007 to vNext. We don't care. Use whatever one method, or use all the methods that work well for you. You can do manual if you want to. It doesn't matter. For most of our top customers, we're doing software distribution, because again, you can control when things happen. They also always test it out on client push as well. Okay, that's a little background. Now, specifically, to get from where you are today to the vNext product. So you saw this home page, and you'll see it again coming up very shortly. This is the home page for migration. You go to the administration wonder bar, and you click the migration node down at the bottom, and we give you those 4 quadrants. Here's what your ConfigMgr 2007 hierarchy looks like as far as primary sites. Here's how many objects you have from the 2007 environment. Here's how many clients you had in the 2007 environment. And here's the migration jobs you had, which migration jobs we'll see in slides. They take objects from here and recreate them in your vNext environment. That's what a migration job is there for. So this is kind of your scorecard to let you see where you're at. And you control everything through the actions that you have on migration. So the first thing you have to do is plan. You want to make sure the template change didn't go very well. Sorry about that. You want to make sure that your current environment is an environment that's supported for migration. What that means is ConfigMgr 2007 Service Pack 2. We migrate nothing below Service Pack 2. So if you're not running Service Pack 2, by the time you get to the vNext version, you need to be running Service Pack 2. We plan on no Service Pack 3 for 2007, SP2, and then now R3 is as far as we plan on going. So you have to be running ConfigMgr 2007 Service Pack 2. We will not migrate over from anything less than that. SP1, RTM, it won't work. And we already mentioned the hardware requirements, which you can't see very well because the box wasn't proper. 64-bit, basically everything. 64-bit Windows Server 2008, 64-bit SQL Server, and then so on. So you assess where you're currently at, you design your migration process, you test it out in your lab environment, and you roll over to your production environment. And that didn't go over well either. They looked great in the previous template I had these in until I migrated them over last night. I guess I just didn't check all the slides. So then you're ready to do your migration. You set up your initial vNext site. So you got your 2007 SP2 environment. And again, we don't care about the R2 and R3 stuff. All we care is SP2. So we don't care if you're sitting in R2 or R3 as far as our R2 and R3. And by the way, there's not going to be an R4. So set up your first vNext primary site. Set up the appropriate site system roles you need. So you're going to want to do reporting. You're going to want to manage patches. So you need a software update point. You're going to want to have, obviously, distribution points. If you had a server locator point before, you probably want a server locator point again. If you had a fallback status point before, you probably want a fallback status point. So figure out all the site system roles you need. You're going to use the software catalog, you need those 2 site system roles. You're going to enroll mobile devices, you need those roles, and so on. The last one is you can really read there in white, configure the software update point and synchronize updates. What that means is if you're using WSUS for patching with the software update point in ConfigMgr 2007, set up WSUS with a software update point in vNext, and synchronize so both WSUS boxes have the same catalog metadata. We won't migrate over software update objects if the metadata is not valid in the target site. And I'm going to show you that in my demo because I have different databases there for WSUS, different metadata, so something's not going to migrate over. So my job's going to fail. I'm showing you that so you can see that.
Can you make it a child of an existing WSUS hierarchy?
We don't support parent-child relationships with WSUS servers. There's no upstream server.
Yeah.
So we don't do that. So you can't do that. It'd be a great idea, though, if we did. So I'll show you what we want you to do is WSUS util export and import is how we want you to do that. And make sure your hierarchy is working before you try and do your migration. So I've had customers in the past where they would just deploy the brand new version and then immediately start pulling over clients to the old version. And it wouldn't work. The clients would migrate over, but they wouldn't report in, or something was not working properly. And the reason being that they had something that was not working properly in the new environment, like their management point wasn't there, so clients couldn't report in. So before you ever try and pull anything over, install a brand new client in your new site. So I always take the site server. So I install my site server, install my infrastructure, make my site server a client, verify I can retrieve policies, create a software distribution job. And if I can run a software distribution job properly, then I know I'm good. Because that means I'm getting the policy from the MP, I'm pulling content location from the MP, I'm getting content from the DP, so that part works, and I can go ahead and install my software and report back status. So basically the infrastructure is working. There may be individual things that aren't, but if that much ain't working, no sense bringing over clients, because I'm going to have a whole bunch of stuff that's not being managed properly.
So, sorry, Wally, just, you may have touched on it before and I can't remember. Do you support 2007 SP2 client in a VNext environment, or do they have to be updated to the new client before?
I have not touched on that yet, and we have very limited support for anything 2007 in a VNext infrastructure. And that very limited support is clients, enough that clients could hit a VNext environment to like a fallback status point saying, hey, I can't find my MP, or a server locator point to find out what site they should be assigned to. But we don't support 2007 clients being assigned to a VNext site.
Okay, so in this scenario then you would update the client via your 2007 hierarchy?
Correct.
And you point it...
If you want to do software distribution. So if you want to do software distribution, you would use take the VNext binaries, the client folder, make it available to the 2007 infrastructure, create a package, program, advertisement, and as part of that, you'd redirect that client as you upgrade him to the VNext infrastructure.
Okay, and on the command line, if you set the site code to auto, would it automatically
Don't do
look
that.
to...
You guys should never, never, ever use SMS site code equals auto. You're nodding your head and laughing like, yeah, I do it today. We don't want you to. Lots of bad reasons. I'll talk about that when we get that far. I would never use SMS site code equals auto. So, that's just my own personal opinion based on brilliant stuff up here. And as you can tell, all my gray matter turned to gray hair, so I wouldn't go that far. So make sure that your VNext environment is up and running, and then you do your migration. So I'll walk through these slides. You map your VNext environment to your 2007 environment. Once you've done that, you migrate over objects from your 2007 environment to your VNext environment. You migrate over your clients. Once you're all done, you migrate over your DPs from 2007 to VNext, and I'll tell you what that means. You can uninstall your 2007 environment, and then rinse and repeat, which just means go through your entire hierarchy and do that. Get all your sites moved over and your clients moved over. So I'll get more details coming up. That's the high-level procedure. Okay, so the first thing you do is you map or set up a relationship between your VNext CAS, and CAS is Central Administration. So you set up a relationship between your VNext CAS and your 2007 Simple site. So you specify the Simple site server for your 2007 environment. Now this doesn't mean you have to have a hierarchy over here, and it doesn't mean you have to have a hierarchy over here. But does anybody run just a single standalone primary site and no hierarchy? Okay, a couple of you? Okay, that's fine. Your migration is very simple, because you have one site that maps to another site. Most people are sitting in this environment where they have a hierarchy of primary and secondary sites, and they're going to have a hierarchy of has multiple primary sites on a single line, and then possibly secondary sites below that. So from over here, and I'll do this slide here momentarily, I specify the central site server of my 2007 environment. What that does is that immediately has this guy going across the wire to this guy and querying objects. We use WMI and SQL to go to the appropriate resources over there, find out what objects you have available in the 2007 environment, how many clients do you have in 2007, and we create that over here in the VNext environment. So VNext is going to have in its database a listing of all the objects and all the clients in 2007. We haven't created any new objects, just the metadata. So just a listing of the number of objects you have and appropriate relationships. And I'll show you why that momentarily. So that's a process called synchronization. And we go ahead and do this synchronization so that we know what objects are there and what relationships are. and we do that querying process on a continual basis. It's scheduled for every 4 hours. So every 4 hours, this site's going to go across the wire over here to say, hey, anything new over here, or anything that's changed since the last time I queried. Because you're going to likely keep this infrastructure running for a while. It's not going to be an instantaneous upgrade. Now, for a couple of you guys that have standalone primaries, you might be able to get it done overnight, depending on how many clients you have. But most people have multiple sites. It's going to take a while to do this migration. So you're going to be still managing this site. You have to manage the clients over here that have been migrated. So you might create new packages, new advertisements. You might modify an existing package. We have to know about that over here. So we do this synchronization process occasionally. So then we go grab data from there and create that data in our VNext database.
Is that fixed to 4 hours? Or
No, it's by default. You can schedule it, and I'll show you that when I do this. Okay, then there's a whole bunch of arrows going to appear here. Then what you do is you set up mappings from your child primary sites in 2007 over to your CAS in the VNext environment. So I haven't really, we didn't do the hierarchy presentation here just because of lack of time. In VNext, you can have a CAS if you want to have multiple primary sites connected together. Just like in the current product, you want to have multiple sites connect together, you have a central site and then your primary sites. Same thing would happen here. A couple of the differences, however, are, you'll see in this presentation, in 2007, I can have clients assigned to my CAS. I cannot have clients assigned to your CAS, or to the central site over there. Can't have clients assigned to your CAS in VNext. No clients here. Your CAS has no MP, it has no DP, so it can't support any clients. So clients are always going to be assigned to the first tier primary site. And in 2007, the reason I would have these mappings for these child primary sites is you may not always do your administration from the central site. If you do your administration always from the central site, you create something there, it replicates down to all these guys. And I would get all that data from this central site. But in 2007, I can sit here and I can create an object here. I can create a collection or a package or an advertisement. I can create a software update list from here and so on. And they stay at this site, or if I create one here, replicate down and so on. VNext, I told you before, anything you create as an admin, collections, applications, packages, deployments, and so on, they replicate everywhere. So if I create a collection over here, the EMEA primary site, it's sitting up here at CAS, it's sitting over here at USA. Because that's global data that replicates to all your primary sites. So because you might have unique data down here that's not up here, you would have to do mappings from each of your child primary sites over to your CAS. In beta 1, you can actually map them to child primary sites here, but in beta 2, we're just going to have you map them to CAS because that's going to replicate everywhere anyway.
I take it that's an optional step. You don't necessarily have to do that if you're aware that all of the objects at the lower levels aren't really necessary.
Correct. If you have everything up here that you want, then you just have to do this one mapping and you can ignore the other child sites.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. And then the last one, again, that's we look at every 4 hours for changes in status of DPs. We also, as part of the synchronization process, we find all the DPs over here, and we find what content's on those DPs, and we map those DPs over here, or create pseudo objects for them. That way, VNext clients that are looking for content can get that content from a shared DP over here, a DP that's shared between the two sites before you upgrade your DP. Okay, so let me show you that. So now I got 3 images up and running. Let me go over, I have them logged into my 2007 site server. You guys kept asking me questions during the break, so I kept falling further behind in my preparation for this. So it's all y'all's fault. And y'all, all y'all is a Texas term, so you guys probably never heard it before. All y'all means all you all. That's clear? Everybody. There, is that better? Okay, so I have a, oops, didn't want that. I have a hierarchy here, so I have a central administration site. So it's not called a central site anymore, it's a central administration site, because the purpose of this top level site now is for centralized administration. So I showed you, we got a few extra minutes here, so I'll show you the sites node we looked at before in the standalone primary. This will now show you all three of my site servers, the simple sites. So the sites node shows you all my sites in the nodes, and I can go pick any of these sites down below and do administration of them. Site system server shows me all my site systems and all the sites below me in the hierarchy. So all three of them. Site roles, it shows me all my site roles. Notice management point, there's not one for central. And distribution point, not one for central. CAS, which my computer name is central for the CAS. CASs do not support clients. So no need for a management point, no need for a distribution point. No roaming to a CAS in vNext.
Still a still a 3-code site code, yeah?
It still is a 3-character code site code. You guys are very used to it. We didn't want to confuse you by giving you more characters. So, how's that for you? Very common request to have something beyond 3 characters, but it ain't there. So, would have taken more coding and changing the product than we wanted to do for this release. So, maybe someday in the future, but I would not hold my breath if I were you. Thank you for anything beyond a 3-character site code. All right, then if we go to that monitoring node I showed you before, this will be a little more exciting. Ooh. And, so, what you'd very likely see is, and if this is all I have, which is one primary and one secondary, I wouldn't need CAS. I can have a secondary below a standalone primary. But realistically, I have another primary over here, sibling, and another one, and however many you need. But no, this can be primary, this can't be primary. That obviously can't be secondary if the child secondary below it. I'd like to have one tier of primary sites, and then if beta 2 will allow you to hover over this, find out what your, oops, you knock your mouse over, hover over and get your site status, and directly go to that site and so on.
Do they, in future releases, will they sort of glow green or red or whatever, depending on the sort of your...
Glow green or red? I've not seen any or heard anything as far as status glowing, but we let you hover over here and see that, but I don't know. Those UI guys, you never know what they're going to do. And then the last thing I wanted to show you before we get into the migration stuff was database replication. So this is because we're now using SQL replication, this shows you the status of your links, and I'm at the CAS, so I see everything. I'm from CAS to primary 1, central to primary 1, link is active. I can see the last date and time that we did downward or upwards replication, so I can see what the status is. And then from my primary to my secondary, my link has failed. That's because the secondary site image is not started. So I just got the CAS, child primary, even though the child primary has a secondary site, it's not running right now. So that's why the link has failed. Okay. And then one more thing I'm going to do before we get into our migration. So I'm going to go to my child primary, and this is completely off topic, but I'm standing up front so I can do whatever I want. And I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go and create a new collection. I'm going to just go create a collection. I'm going to call it Cardinal Place. I'm not going to give it membership rules, which I know is stupid, but I'm just because I don't want to embarrass myself by picking a query that doesn't work. So I know that. I know that.
Is it still WQL queries?
Pardon?
Are they still WQL queries?
They still are weekly queries, yes. They still are. Cliff can attest that that was probably one of the very top requests by our MVPs was to move away from WQL for our queries, and you can see how much input how much we accept our MVP suggestions. No, we would like to, but on our priority scale of things, that falls down the priority scale because it works the way it is. So anyway, this is a child primary. In your current product, if again you created a collection right here, it doesn't go anywhere. Now, if I created one here, it would replicate down and so on, but it would never come up here. And if I created one here, it would never wind up here, here, or here, or there. vNext, that's not the case. So I created this this collection down here at primary 1 called Cardinal Place. And if I go over to my CAS, and I go to Assets and Compliance, I go to Device Collections, the SQL replication is 2-minute cycle. So within another minute or so, that will appear here under Device Collections. And so it'll just happen. What I'm trying to show you here is that stuff replicates up and it replicates over. So if I have another child primary, a collection I create on primary 1 is going to replicate and get over to primary 2. So the stuff that you create as an admin appears everywhere. And of course, when you want it to happen right away, it never happens right away. Site 2 to site 1, 9:32. Hey, I'm in the office now, 9:36 a.m. So any second now, that guy should go ahead and replicate over. So we can see that, there it is. So it replicated up. And you see the site code is PR1, which is my child primary site code. So anything you guys create as an admin, for the most part, goes everywhere. Boundaries, packages, applications, deployments, collections, admin users, security roles, security scopes, etc. They go all over the place.
Does that mean, and there's no padlock, right? So you can edit and change any of the sites as well?
As long as I have the appropriate security role and scope assigned, so I can see it and I have the role that would allow me to edit it, yes.
Okay. Does that mean you have a single namespace for the SCCM space, for VNet space? I mean, do you need to connect to a specific server within your console there, or can you just connect to a unified namespace?
Nope, well, it's not a unified namespace, but one of the cool things is because of this replication, if I'm assigned here to Cardinal Place, and that's where I normally reside and do my administration, tomorrow I'm going over to TVP, if that's a different site, I can log into a TVP server over there, and I administer my site from there just as if I was sitting here, because I've got all the exact same data there. It goes by who I am and what roles and scopes I have access to, so what objects I can see and where I see them from.
So I could hide it behind DFS if I wanted to. It wouldn't matter if I wanted to put those
Behind DFS, we would not support you doing anything with DFS there.
Right.
Because this is standard SQL replications going all over the place.
Okay. All right.
So no, how you would hide stuff is by security scopes. So if I didn't want this collection to appear in your site, I would go ahead and put a scope on there, which you don't have access to that scope, so you wouldn't see my object. It's physically in your SQL database, but it wouldn't be visible to you, the admin, without that security scope assigned to you.
Well, if you wanted to do, say, some of our applications are massive, like 12 gig, how could you stop that replicating across all
Well, your
sites?
content doesn't go to any other site until you add the DP to it. So it's the metadata, the definition of that application would go everywhere. But it's still the same product, that's the same as you know today, which you have to add the DP to that DP group or the DP individually before you get that package.
Right, so it's not replicating everything everywhere.
Yeah.
So certain things.
It's the metadata. It's the definitions of
The
everything.
MVP something that scared the hell out of us when they said all the global data. We're like, wow, you can't be doing that. You can't be putting stuff everywhere. That's what it says. It clarifies it's certain data, only certain data's only certain places.
So if two admins with two different rights try to create a collection with the same name, how does that?
It's fine, because you can do that same thing in 2007 today, because they got different object IDs.
Yeah, but the parent object will override the child object.
No, because they're two different collection IDs, object IDs. So I can have the same collection in there, same object in there with the same name twice, because they're different object IDs. Yeah, so the same thing would happen.
Why does it not allow you to create a collection of the same name within the same site concurrently?
In the same site, correct, because the site code would be the same, and the UI just filtered that out, but in different sites it's fine, but with the SDK you can actually create that same object, even though it's got different object IDs, with the same name, with the SDK, but the UI filters that out, doesn't let you. Okay, so back where we were supposed to go, I just want to give you a little bit of history or additional information since I kind of talked about it, we didn't get there before. So where we were supposed to be is here's the migration node, and now we want to set up this mapping between the ConfigMgr 2007 environment and the VNext environment. What I didn't show you, is if the console's loaded now, is this is a Service Pack 2 site. So ConfigMgr 2007 Service Pack 2 is sitting over there, which is what we require. So I click the Specify Source Hierarchy action. I specify the computer name, and you can see it could be by FQDN as well. SMS server, I need you guys to check me on this. Should be SMS server, even though it's not SMS, but in beta 1 or beta 1, if you screw this up, you either got to start all over or you got to hack the database. And I don't want to hack the database in front of you guys. Because I'm not a database guy, so I want to make sure I do it correctly. But of course, these are VMs, I can shut down and restart, so I'm fine, but this takes longer. And then my account is SMS domain. I'm just going to use administrator. So this is an account that has, in this case, provider access. So SMS domain, administrator, yep. So this is for the SMS provider. And then I'm saying by default, use the same account for SQL Server. In beta 2, if I remember correctly, we're only going to let you use user account, because most often your computer account's not going to work anyway because you're in different forest. So I think we're getting rid of the use local system account option. I can use the same account for both, or I use a different account for the provider and the SQL Server. Okay, if I click that, this will refresh here momentarily. If I go expand and then go to primary site mapping, it shows me on one mapping here. It says not synchronized. I've not done the synchronization process. Tells me details down here. If I refresh, it probably should be synchronizing now. So synchronizing has found 41 objects so far, and it's done now. So it's got 47 objects. Still says synchronizing, but any second now it's going to say synchronizing content data and ready for next synchronization. So it is done synchronizing. So that only took, what, 10 seconds? You guys are going to have a lot more than 2 clients and a lot more than 47 objects available. So some of our account customers just taken a couple of hours to synchronize everything. So we got tens of thousands of clients or hundreds of thousands of clients, and thousands of packages, thousands of advertisements, and so on. So it may take hours to do this because we're recreating not everything, but the list of objects in our VNext database. We also go down here and go to distribution points. We show you which DPs you have in your 2007 environment so that we have them mapped over here. So we know what content's on these DPs. So now if a client that's a VNext client gets a deployment or an advertisement that says, hey, get this package, and it's not on a VNext DP yet, because I haven't recreated everything, or I haven't moved the DP over, I can go query that content from the 2007 DP. So I can share that DP between both versions. So 2007 clients can use the DP as well as my VNext clients. And then when I'm all done, got all my clients moved over, I just click the upgrade option here. That will upgrade the DP from a 2007 DP to a VNext DP. And as you guys know, DPs have no code on them, SMS code on them. What that does is it deletes it from the 2007 site database and adds it to the VNext site database. When it adds it over, it keeps all the package references there, so you don't have to re-push the packages over the wire. So good way of saving your WAN utilization.
Well, does that mean that the package codes and so on are all based on your old site code information, or does that all get does that get changed when you do like when you sort of do the final tick for I'm now VNext environment?
Well, you just wait yourself a minute and you'll see that.
Sorry.
Some people know too much already. Ruining my presentation, my demos. No. You'll see a lot of cool things here momentarily. So here's the updated scorecard, or whatever you call it. So central site, SMS server, one primary site below it. You guys would have more than one site near, not below, but one total primary site. You'd have more than one, most of you. And the last time you synchronized, and I have done no migration job so far. I've got 47 objects total and 2 clients total. Now my primary site mapping, I go to properties. Here's where I can change my schedule and how often I synchronize, from 1 hour to daily. I can force it to synchronize now, if I wish to. And then we have this action here, decommission site. We'll see that in slides later on. Decommission says, hey, I'm all done with this 2007 site. Stop remembering it. So no more synchronization from this 2007 site. I've got everything over that I need from it. So basically, break the relationship. Don't need any more querying of it. Okay, so that's all for that. So I've done my specify source hierarchy, and if I did have, the other thing it says here is map primary sites. If I did have a child primary site below this, I'd be able to configure a mapping, and I'd be able to go in there and go to my child primary site, like this example right here. I'd be able to go to a MIA primary site and do a mapping from this site server over to my house. But it knows when it does synchronization, it knows that there's no child primaries below the site, so it doesn't let me configure any other mappings for that hierarchy. So. All right. Okay, so we've done that. We'll get into the migration jobs now. So migration jobs, I got that list of 47 objects now in my VNext database. Migration jobs are the commands that say, take this object or objects and recreate them in VNext from the 2007 environment. What this synchronization process did is it didn't write anything to the 2007 database. All we did was read information. Migration jobs just say recreate stuff over in the VNext environment. It doesn't, again, change anything, doesn't modify anything in 2007. There's two different ways to migrate your objects. The top one is by type of object. So software distribution packages, OS images, task sequences. So I go by object type. And that, as he says there, you can cherry pick which objects you want. You get the most commonly used objects migrated over right away, and I can not migrate over stuff that I know is legacy I don't need anymore. What we think most people are going to do instead is do migration by collection. I can take a collection of clients and move clients over by collection. So what this is going to do when you say migrate by collection is going to query that collection and look at all the objects that that collection refers to. Software distribution packages, advertisements, software updates, DCM objects, OSD stuff, and show you all the objects that are used by that collection. And then you can pick and choose which objects you want by that as well, and then migrate them over. If you don't want some objects, you can exclude them and say, I don't really want that, that's legacy, I don't need to move that over, even though that collection still refers to it. You can create, obviously, numerous migration jobs. You're not going to migrate all clients over at one time, or all collections over at one time. You're going to migrate over a collection at a time. So you have numerous different migration jobs that you're working with. Distribution points, again, we allow you to share the DP between the two different versions of software, the two different clients, 2007 and VNext. And that allows you to not have to recreate all your applet packages over in VNext and put all the content on the VNext DPs. So both clients can share those same DPs. And when you're all done, you just go ahead and do a upgrade, which you can just delete them from one database and add them to the other database. Okay, migration jobs. We'll cancel that. No migration jobs by default, so all we've done is synchronize and recreate some of the, not even metadata, just some of the listings of objects. So I create a migration job. ConfigMgr client. And then I'm not sitting on top of my primary site with the initial mapping when I created this migration job, so I have to select the primary sites I want to map from, which is, you know, you'd think you only have one of each, you wouldn't need to, but we do, because most people are going to have more than one. And then I can migrate by collection or migrate by type. And I'll create two different migration jobs so you can look at both of them. So I'll do by collection. So we're not touching the 2007 environment. We're looking at the data we synchronized to see here's my 20 different collections that I have in my 2007 environment. And I want to take this custom collection called ConfigMgr clients. I can take multiple collections at a time. And click Next. And what this is going to do now is query to find out all the objects that that collection refers to. So it refers to 2 advertisements, 2 other collections, 2 deployment packages, 2 baselines, 5 CIs, 2 packages, and 2 update deployments. And it shows me the listing for each one of those objects. And now I can say, I want or I don't want those objects. In this case, the advertisement for SP2 client upgrade doesn't make sense to bring it over. Because I'm not going to upgrade my clients. They're already SP2 clients. Otherwise, you can't migrate them over. I want to create a new package and VNext upgrade to SP1 when it comes out. So I don't need that advertisement. So I can clear that. Collections. It says these clients are also members of these other 2 collections. So by default, it's going to migrate these 2 collections over. Now I already have an all systems collection in VNext. I don't have an all Windows Workstation or Professional Systems collection in VNext. So what's going to happen, and that's defined on a later page in this wizard. So I'll just leave that for now. Deployment packages, these are software updates. Desired configuration baselines and desired configuration CIs. So I'm going to go ahead and say this baseline doesn't make sense to bring over either. This baseline is a registry setting pointing to where the ConfigMgr client is installed. In VNext, we install the ConfigMgr client in a different location than we do in 2007. We don't install it into Windows System 32 CCM. We're now on all clients, or sysfile 64 or whatever it is, and now all clients is Windows CCM for 32-bit and 64-bit clients. So this CI and baseline is worthless. It's going to point to the wrong stuff anyway, so everybody can be down with the plan. So it doesn't make sense to bring it over. Which means I don't need the CI that baseline refers to either. But I'll bring over the client operating system baseline and the 4 CIs that are referenced by it. Software distribution packages, it doesn't make sense to bring over the ConfigMgr client upgrade package, because again, that's pointing to the SP2 binaries. So I won't bring that over. And realistically, I don't want the SMS 2003 toolkit either, but I gotta migrate something over. And my 2 update deployments, I'll let those go. Click next. And now I can say, don't run the migration job at all, just create it and let me manually run it when I want. Run the migration job right now as soon as I click next, next, and finish, or close. Or schedule it to run later on. So I'm at work now, I want it to run at midnight when nobody's on the wire. And then here's the conflict resolution. So if an object is to be migrated over and that object already appears in the database in vNext, what do I do? And the default is don't migrate over the old 2007 object. So don't migrate over the 2007 all systems collection. Keep the vNext all system collection. And again, that's membership rules. That would change the membership rules, which they should be the same, I would think, in the 2 versions. Or I can say, yes, I want you to migrate over that object. So that'd be a scenario where I've done a synchronization once, done a migration, my package has changed. So you create this package and program, we migrate it over, and oops, it's failing in 2007. So you go back there and you modify the package source content, or modify your program, and now you want to get that new data over to vNext. So you want to overwrite the stuff that you had before. So I'm going to leave this the default. Click next. You have to have security. So who can see these migrated objects? And by default, you only have 1 scope that's available. You actually have 2 scopes. There's the all scope, which you can't assign to people. That's a built-in scope that your king guy, config manager administrator role, the guy who installed the software, he gets the all scope. And for the most part, everybody else would get the default scope. Objects that are created by default would have the default scope on them so they'd see them, but they wouldn't see all. All means I don't care what scopes you're in, I get to see everything. So the default here is just the one you have. So let's select the default. I can create new security scopes here for cardinal place versus TVP and so on, and select my objects. So maybe I have collections of objects, and then all those packages referred by that collection be for TVP, and I can put the appropriate security scope on them right away. And then our recap. Here's what we think as far as objects that get migrated over, the collection we're looking at, running the job right now, and any other details we have. Click next. And then here's what we did, which we're not done yet, but we kicked off the process. Go back to migration jobs. It's not started, but it's going to start immediately, so it should be starting here any second now. And now it's running. Here's all the objects it's going to migrate over. And it'll give us a status as to we're running, and the next runtime is still running. And then when I refresh, it'll change the numbers and give us some data, and it'll take it a moment to migrate over.
Any plans to make that sort of auto refresh at all, or is it still?
Auto refreshing is supposed to happen in Beta 2,
Okay.
all over the console. So yeah, we're supposed to. Should be just about done here. Yep, 8 out of 10. And notice the number went from 13 to 11 to 10. So Beta 1, one of the fixes, Beta 1 doesn't know how to count. Our calculator is busted in Beta 1. So we'll have that all working good. So 10 out of 10, that's good. And we got 1 more to go. It's going to be 11 total. Ah, bummer, we failed. But we get the status. We get the status that we failed. 11, we got 10 out of 11 migrated over, and I told you it was going to fail, and I know why, and I'll show you that momentarily. So back over to our migration homepage, get our status here. We had 1 failed job. We have 4 objects excluded. 10 out of 47 have been migrated over. No clients yet. Remember, we included those 4 objects. I can go to the edit exclusion list that shows me what those 4 objects are. What this means is that if I create another migration job that would have selected one of these 4 objects, it's going to automatically clear it and not migrate it over. So I said you didn't want it one time, you probably don't want it again. So I could manually select a checkbox and migrate it over during one of those jobs, Or I could say, yeah, I really do want to migrate that guy over in the future, so I could remove it, and then it's back into the good list as opposed to the exclusion list. So I can do that. All right, do one more thing for migration jobs before we go and look at what got migrated over. Migration job, and I'll say OSD. Oh, let me do it from here. Let me go to my cancel, and yes, I want to cancel. I'll go to my primary site mapping here, and then I'll create a migration job. And notice now I don't have to set it. So I'll just say OSD. I'm going to migrate by type, just so you can see that. So now it shows us all the objects we had, all 47 objects we had in the 2007 environment, and I can pick and choose what I want here. So if I say OSD, boot images, we aren't going to migrate over boot images, default ones, because there's a new wake embedded in vNext. So your default boot images are recreated in vNext. So we're not going to migrate those over. Driver packages. I have one driver package. If I select this, it says, hey, wait a minute, this driver package refers to those 3 drivers, which means I have to select those 3 drivers automatically. Whereas right now it says, oops, it says 0 out of 3. Click OK or continue. Now it says 3. This will take all 3 drivers. And operating system images. Yeah, I want that one OS image. I don't have any installed packages. Task sequences, I have one, I'll take it. And it says, oh, wait a minute, this task sequence refers to those packages. So it's going to go ahead and say, hey, I have to migrate over those packages. And including the boot image. So it does attempt to recreate it. And then I'll say next. And then here's what I'll say, do not run migration job. And I can just have it created and store it and not do anything with it until I'm ready. And then I can just go ahead and I'll show you what you do. Take your migration job, migration job, not primary site mapping, and then I can just take it, and when I want to, just click start, and I'll kick off the running of the migration job. So, what got migrated over? Software library, an application, a package we had, SMS 2003 toolkit. And if you remember in ConfigMgr 2007, when you imported an MSI, we create 6 programs by default. Per system, attended, unattended, uninstall, and per user, attended, unattended, uninstall. So it's going to have migrated over all 6 programs for that package. And I had it advertised. So here's the advertisement, which is now called the deployment. It's required for all systems, which means when my child primary site server checks policies, guess what? It's not going to try and install the SMS 2003 toolkit, unless I go ahead and obviously delete this, this deployment. Software updates. These are all the same software updates, so nothing changed there. We don't migrate over the updates themselves. Update groups. August critical updates. So here's my update group. Remember, I had 2 update groups before, and only one got migrated. That's the one failure we had. And I'll tell you why here in just a second. And then the deployment packages. It did migrate over the deployment package for synthetic custom updates. So what I had here is in my 2007 site, SMS server, what I had here was in my update repository, I had in security updates, I had a synthetic update that I created with SCUP. This is a update that was created with the System Center Updates publisher. And so I have SCUP installed in my 2007 environment. It had an update metadata in the database. I don't have SCUP installed in my vNext environment, so that update metadata is not in vNext. So it couldn't migrate over the update list, which is now an update group. So it couldn't migrate it over because it didn't have the appropriate metadata. So if I wanted to do that, I either had to install SCUP and then recreate it, or best thing is wsusutil export to a cab file from my 2007 environment, take that cab file over my vNext SCUP, or my vNext SUP, and do a wsusutil import of that cab file. So it'd have the exact same metadata. Then that migration job wouldn't have failed, and I would have got all 11 objects over. So that's why it failed, because of this synthetic software update. And we didn't migrate over any OSD stuff, so I never ran that job. Assets and compliance. Here's the All Windows Workstation and Professional Systems collection. And you can see it got recreated because it's got the on here cows. Now, back to the question earlier, my package. MCM0005. That's the site code of my 2007 site server. So for things that we track by ID so that clients don't rerun them, same ID. For things that clients aren't concerned about, like this case, a collection, we recreate it in the CAS. So it's got the CAS ID on it instead of MCM000 or whatever it would have been. And cardinal place I created earlier. ConfigMgr clients is the one I migrated over. So it wasn't there in this environment, so that's obviously a brand new one as well. So I migrated those over, but didn't change my all systems collection.
So the thinking behind that, I guess, is because your packages are effectively temporary because you're going to create applications from them at some point.
Correct.
So
we're hoping that you guys, when you go here, you migrate over your packages, they come over here as packages. We're hoping that you'll be able to migrate them over or recreate them as applications and then remove them as packages once you've gotten familiar with the application model and creating the MSI scenario or the AppD or the Windows Mobile or whatever the deployment types we have, yes. So yeah, we move them over here as packages so that you can still have them deployed, which this one is deployed, and it's going to go to my primary site server, and then we're hoping you'll be able to migrate over here, or at least all the new stuff you do will now be applications, and just keep all this legacy stuff here.
Is that the sort of thing you could use an SDK to do?
The theory would be you'd be able to use an SDK to help recreate packages as applications. Yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit, not the SDK, but something we're doing in beta 2. CIs, okay. And then configuration items or compliance settings. So I had nothing in this environment, so there's the 4 operating system CIs that we had migrated over, and then the 1 baseline. So that's all the stuff that got migrated over. Now I have this baseline here, so it's assigned. And I think it's assigned to the all systems collection or ConfigMgr clients collection, whatever it was. And so my clients will run this baseline when they do their policy check as well. So things will start happening based on the migration stuff.
When is it migrate packages into applications?
It doesn't.
No,
we don't
you
migrate
said
over.
No, we create them. Do you then get the content or double on the DPs?
No. Well, technically, there's no reason you couldn't point an application to the SMS PKG $$ folder on a DP. You're just pointing to the source folders, to the source files for your application. So you're just pointing to the MSI you're importing, and it takes that entire folder for them. So there's no reason you couldn't point to that location.
Yeah, same source, yeah. It's
Right.
not that, but if you have same product as an application in the program, and you assign, do you have to assign them both to a DP while you're moving the objects or migrating from programs to applications?
We use an entirely different source an entirely different stored location on DPs for applications than we do packages. So I don't have an application in here in this environment, but so here's my SMS PKG. I've migrated over to source file, the SMS PKG $$ or whatever. We don't do that. We put all applications in SCCM content lib $. So that's who can manage the single instance store. So your distribution point looks entirely different for applications than it does for packages. So we wouldn't be any conflict there. Okay, about 25 minutes, okay? All right, clients. Clients. I have a client I can pick up the migration on. Go ahead and I haven't started the client up yet. So let me get him started and we can look at that. Clients retain their execution history on upgrade. That way you won't rerun all your advertised programs once you get them migrated over. And you use your preferred method of client deployment. We expect most people use software distribution. You would take, again, create a package in 2007 that includes the binaries, the client folder for the VNext environment, and then create your deployment or advertise it since you're still in 2007. We would want you to not use SMS site equals auto because of the fact that right now you're going to be in an overlapping boundary scenario. And if you're in an overlapping boundary scenario, you don't know which site that client's going to get assigned to. We do not support VNext clients assigned to a 2007 site. We do not support 2007 clients assigned to a VNext site. So right now, since you're going to be in this overlapping boundary scenario, probably what you want to do is, and we don't, in beta 1, we don't migrate over your boundaries. We are going to in beta 2, is you probably don't want to have boundaries on your VNext site unless you have unique enough boundaries that you can keep some boundaries on 2007 and have unique boundaries on VNext. Like you have 10 subnets and your subnets are individual collections. You migrate collection 1, which is a specific subnet. You migrate those clients over. You can remove the boundary from 2007, add it to VNext, or you could leave it in 2007, not have a boundary in VNext, migrate over your clients, SMS site code equals VNext site code, upgrade them, reassign them. Then once you got all the clients migrated over, then you go ahead and remove the boundary from the 2007 site. Now, one of my top customers is in that scenario where they have both environments running at the same time, and we didn't put the boundaries in the VNext environment. So their VNext environment is completely boundaryless. And that's fine, we perfectly support that. What you have to do, however, is whenever you create a deployment, any site without boundaries, all clients are considered remote boundaries, or slow network boundary clients. You have to change all your deployments to say support slow network boundaries. Once you do that, things work great. My other top customer, he wound up flattening his box, that's his 2007 site server, and recreating it with the VNext site server. So he had no side-by-side stuff. He did an in-place upgrade, which is a flatten and reload. So it was his scenario, which obviously supported, but you lose everything. And he was fine with that. He was fine with that. He wanted to recreate everything and start over clean with his VNext environment. And he didn't have new hardware to do side-by-side. So he did the flatten and reload scenario. Then he went ahead and he's been doing client push in his VNext environment to upgrade clients and going that route. But you can do client push, you can do software distribution, which most people do, root policies, software update point, so WSUS, publish our client in there, manual, OFD, you can do any of those methods to upgrade your clients. We don't care how you get them upgraded. Just when you do your upgrade, SMS site code equals, and then the VNext site code. So just assign them. Minimum client requirements, I already mentioned that. No more Windows 2000, so the lowest client we support is Windows XP Service Pack 2 for 64-bit clients. For 32-bit clients, it's Windows XP Service Pack 3. And then on up through the current OSs. Okay, so let me go over here and log into this client. And if I remember correctly, this client actually lost its domain membership. So I'm going to have to re-add to the domain, otherwise my site server won't be able to push to it. So I tried this last week in Johannesburg, and the CCM setup never kicked off my client. And I went and looked, and it was domain membership. Somehow got screwed up in these images, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same way here. So let's just go ahead and fix this right now. Now, also in beta 1, we don't support cross-forest stuff, and my client, my ConfigMgr 2007 site is technically a different forest, so I manually changed my client over to the same forest as my VNext environment, but somehow in these images it lost that. If I log out and log back in, it says, hey, I couldn't log in because the trust account was gone. So I'll get this guy rebooting, and then I'll go ahead and kick off a upgrade of the client through client push. Not very exciting, watching a hourglass until it pops up and says, hey, yes, welcome to the ConfigMgr domain. And then here's the reboot. And I'll say yes, and then we'll go back over to our slides and talk about inventory clients data. Now, on clients, we have some new requirements on clients. So you know how today we push the Windows Update Agent, how we push bits 2.5, we push a WMI update, and so on. So we push a number of things there. In VNext, we have some additional data. The biggest thing on clients in VNext is we require the .NET 4.0 client framework. And if you've tried installing that, you know it's not an instantaneous installation. It's like a 15-minute installation and a reboot afterwards. So what you might want to do as you're preparing to get your clients upgraded, which again, you got a year because this product's not going to ship for a year yet, close to it, is you might want to start pre-deploying the .NET 4.0 client framework to your clients. We also do Microsoft Policy Platform, which is very small and simple, and Microsoft Silverlight 3.0. We require that for the software catalog. software catalog is Silverlight based. So we require those three things. Policy platform and Silverlight are very small and simple, so they migrate over or install very quickly. But again, the .NET 4.0 is very long. So this client doesn't have it in this image. So when we get the client installing, it's not going to finish before we get done unless you stay till 6. If you stay till 6, you might see the client done. But other than that, you're not going to see it. Let me see if I can log into the client yet. Yep. Okay, now I'll start the task manager. And then let's go over to my, okay, you can't have clients assigned to a CAS. So I cannot point this client to the site code CAS, C-A-S. But one of the cool things I'm going to show you is very often you guys want to have a scenario where, let's see if the record's over here yet. Show members. Okay, I can't do the push yet because let me do an update because the client is not there yet. It takes them a few moments before the client records get recreated. Actually, I can just show you from here. It doesn't matter. Take one of these guys, what I was going to show you anyway. Install client. One of the cool things is today you guys have a scenario where you got primary sites and child secondary sites, and you have WAN links, and you want to install the clients on the child secondary site, which is not the easiest thing to do in VNext through client push. So what we do now is, I can do that. I can just say install clients from this site, and say install from secondary site. That creates a CCR here, and it uses SQL replication to replicate it down to that secondary site, and it'll kick off the CCR from the secondary site server. Because there is an MP there already, because we forced it on secondary site servers, secondary sites. So it's very easy to now control where your clients get installed from in a push operation, through the wizard, not through the automated process. Cancel, yes. And let's see if the record's here. Doesn't matter, I'm going to push it from the child primary. Let me see if it's down there. Go to my child primary, oops. Child primary. And then, and if I do a refresher, I should get those other two collections that I don't have right now. And there they are, all Windows workstations and configment clients. And this one's not going to have any records because it has a membership rule looking for client installed, and obviously client's not installed there, the VNext client. So I'm going to go here and show members here. And there we are, SMS client. So now install client. And you notice that it does not say it's assigned to my site. So site code is blank, so it doesn't think it's assigned to the site, which is not. It's in a different subnet than what my boundaries are here for the site, so I have to say install from the site. Technically, you don't have to do this because this is a major version upgrade, and you don't have to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and select it anyway because I like to. Always make sure that your object name is the client you want, not the collection that the client's a member of. Too often, people are in all systems, and they click a client, and they click the wrong install client, and they start pushing out 10,000 CCRs. For some environments, that's a resume generating event, but hopefully not yours. So always verify in your summary page that you got the right object there. And then this guy should, fairly shortly, on this guy, CCM setup should launch. Hopefully there it goes. So CCM setup's kicking off, and it does an automatic SMS site code equals PR1 in this case. Again, this is going to take 20 minutes or more because of the .NET framework stuff. So we'll see him popping in here shortly. On your clients, if it's a 64-bit client OS, so you're running the 32-bit client in it, we're now native 64-bit client. We uninstall the 32-bit client, we reinstall with the 64-bit client. If it's a 32-bit client on a 32-bit client, we just do an upgrade of that client to the 32-bit VNext client. Anyway, we're not migrating over any compliance data or any inventory data from the clients. It's a brand new client in a brand new site. It's going to recreate everything as the client gets installed. It's going to run hardware inventory, and it'll run the DCM and software update stuff that's going to get the policies for it. The last bullet where it says retain ConfigMgr 2007 data, what that means is if you want to retain your data in your ConfigMgr 2007 environment as you decommission it, one thing you can do is use SQL reporting services. It's our SRS implementation. We support an offline database. So you can have some sort of a replica or backup and restore of a SQL database with your SRS installed, and keep that as your repository of your old data as you migrate things over to the new big VNext environment. Otherwise, things will age out of your 2007 database is not being discovered anymore. And you're going to flatten it anyway when you're all done. So a review, and then we're going to go into some scenarios in the last 15 plus minutes. Migration process review. Define your primary site mappings top down. Central site, and then go all the way down to your child primary sites, map them over your CAS. Migration objects top down. So central site to CAS, migrate your objects over, and then child primaries, migrate those over. Migrate your clients. When you're all done migrating all your clients over, you decommission the site. So to say, I don't care about the 2007 site anymore. No more migration, no more synchronization. And you do that from bottom up. And you uninstall your child primary sites bottom up as well. Okay, a couple of sample profiles for you, then we'll get into objects and then we'll be all done. Okay, so this is a small environment, 5,000 clients, one campus environment with some satellite offices, one administrator who does everything, and then they use most of the features fairly well. So here's what we think they would have in a 2007 environment. So they have the corporate campus with central site. There they say 3,000 clients, local SQL server. We support the same scenarios in VNext with local SQL Server versus remote SQL servers. We don't care. If you absolutely want the best performance, our recommendation is separate the site server from the SQL Server now. That's completely opposite of what we used to say many years ago, co-locate. Now we're saying with best performance, because SQL improvements and improvements in our code and how we interact with SQL, your best performance is a dedicated SQL box, 64-bit box even today in the 2007 environment. And then a dedicated link between the two, high-speed pipe. But anyway, MP, couple of DPs, fallback status points, server locator point, sub, state migration point, reporting services point, up there to the simple setup. Sales office far left, only 15 clients, good connectivity, so branch cache or branch DP. Okay. District office down at the bottom, 1,500 clients. They want to manage the WAN in both directions, so they set up a secondary site here with an MP. So I got the client policy traffic, software update points, and the clients aren't scanning against there, and then I assume that's supposed to be SMP, because that's an MP right there. And the warehouse, again, they have a large enough number of clients that they want to just put a DP here. So they want to manage the WANs and put a DP to the secondary site here, but no MP. They weren't worried about the upward flow of traffic. So no MP, just a DP here to get the content control down flowing to these almost 500 clients. So that's what they have in 2007. I'll just draw on the site systems. Now in VNext, what we would do is it's going to look pretty much the same in VNext. So corporate campus, local SQL, same site system roles. Sales office, still the same, branch DP or branch cache. District office, we want to manage the upward and download flow for secondary sites. So MP, DP, SUP, and SMP, state migration point for OSD. And SQL Express is running here now. As you install a secondary site in VNext through the wizard, we ask you, do you have an instance of SQL already running, or do you want us to push down SQL Express? And we can push down SQL Express with our secondary site install. It takes about half the time, or twice the time to install SQL Express. That's without it. But what we did in the warehouse is we removed the secondary site and put in a standard DP, because it's bandwidth throttling and rate limits scheduling. So, and we were only concerned about the downward flow of traffic. So we got rid of a secondary site here, which is a lot less overhead on your primary site server, a DP than just a secondary site is. So we removed a site here and just put in a standard DP for download flow of traffic, which is content. The flow that we go through here is, first thing, ensure that SP2 is installed, because it's the only place we migrate from. Install your primary site, VNext. Enable the software update point and do the WSUtil export and import process, so we get the same metadata. Specify your source hierarchy and migrate over your objects from the 2007 simple site. And that's the only primary site in the environment, so it's the only mapping we have to do. We don't migrate over anything from secondary sites. Migrate over your objects. Migrate all the clients from the headquarters over to the VNext clients. And then in the warehouse, uninstall the secondary site and deploy a ConfigMgr VNext DP. So standard distribution point there, so get rid of the site server. Migrate all your clients over. Then uninstall the secondary site at the district office and redeploy ConfigMgr VNext secondary site. There is no upgrade, no in-place upgrade at all, so you have to uninstall and reinstall your DP or your secondary sites. Not a big deal because the secondary sites don't really maintain anything in 2007. They will a little bit now in VNext. and upgrade those clients to be next. And the sales office, just upgrade your clients. You're not changing any technology at all there at all. So, and then uninstall the primary site up in Chicago that we had. You already uninstalled the 2 secondary sites there. So not a bad scenario as far as the work has to be done. And we removed 1 site server and replaced it with an EP here. Okay, the next one is a little more complicated. So profile 2, about 25,000 clients, and they have a headquarters in Chicago, a subsidiary here in London, 4 administrators doing different work, and use all the features. Now what they have here is a central site in Chicago with almost 15,000 clients, and remote controls enabled. But they also have an HR group in Chicago that can't use remote control. They can't have remote control enabled because of client confidentiality. We want to make sure nobody can remotely control an HR box and get access to any employee data. And I know you can use the SDK and local policies to turn off remote control on a collection of clients, but most people don't use the SDK. Most people create separate sites like this. So 2 different sites there, and the reason being site settings. So different client agent settings there. So 2 different admins, 1 for the HR group and then 1 for the rest of the environment. Down in London, we had 1 site for desktops, 9,500 clients, and then a different site for servers. So this is the cliff and ice scenario. We want to make sure we're not stepping on each other's boundaries. So it's really hard to do in the current product. So most people create a separate primary site for servers and a separate primary site for desktops and manage that way. So 2 different admins down here administering their own group of systems. Maybe they have different scheduling intervals for hardware inventory, maybe software update type stuff. The big concern is that I manage the servers and I don't want Cliff touching my guys. So we have, most people do, almost everybody does separate primary sites. So we have 4 primary sites in this environment. Now going to be next, we would set up a CAS in the Chicago office. You can't have any clients in a CAS. So none of those 15,000 clients can be assigned to the CAS, so we have to have a child primary site in Chicago anyway. So we have a child primary site in Chicago, but the big difference is that we don't have to have these for client agent segmentation. We just have to have the 2 because you can't have any clients here, so you have to have a primary site. And we can now use custom client agent settings to turn off remote control for the collection of those 300 HR systems. And now what's going to happen is the admin from the Chicago primary site is going to move over to the CAS. You can still do administration from child primary sites. We just recommend you do administration of the CAS. That way it's familiar with what you're doing today. So when you create objects there, they replicate everywhere. Now in London, then all your clients, again, they can't be assigned to the CAS. They got to get upgraded and reassigned to the child primary site in Chicago. In London, we now move all the servers and desktops into a single primary site. Because now I can use role-based security with security roles and security scopes and separate Cliff and myself from each other's collections of systems. So I no longer have to worry about Cliff stuffing on my boxes. In Beta 2, it gets even better so that when I create Cliff as an admin, I designate the collection he's limited to. So I'll designate desktop collection. And when he creates any collections, he's automatically limited to that collection. He can't see anything above desktop collections. He can create new collections below that, but he can't modify anything or see anything outside of his limit 2 collection. And we'll automatically add that when we create those users in Beta 2. And so now I create 1 site, and I create different collections, and use scopes on those collections to go ahead and separate Cliff from myself, as well as any custom client agent settings that I need for servers versus the desktops. So we removed 1 primary site in this example. So this is going to be a little bit more complicated because we have a total of 4 primary sites in the environment. So set up my VNext CAS, and of course we're all running SP2 here. So set up my VNext CAS, enable my software update point and do the WSUtil export and import. Set up my child primary site in Chicago for all my clients. Specify my mapping of my central site to my CAS. Specify my mapping for my child primary site HR to my CAS. Migrate over my clients from central site and child primary in Chicago to the 1 child primary in Chicago now. And migrate objects up to from the HR site up to the CAS. And then I repeat those last few steps for my London environment. So set up a site in London, set up a software update point, synchronize the metadata, specify a mapping from desktop site, a mapping from server site in London up to my cows, migrate over my objects. They replicate down to London primary site as well as Chicago primary site. Migrate all my clients from the desktop site, migrate over my clients from the server site, decommission my site, so break the mappings, so decommission mappings from bottom up. We actually won't let you decommission a mapping at a parent site if there's already a mapping at the child site still in place. So you have to go bottom up. So break all 4 relationships, and then just uninstall your primary sites in 2007, and then you repurpose the hardware for something else as you need it. Okay, so before I go any further, questions?
Is there any guidance about when to install a secondary site and when to install a DP?
Yes. The guidance is if you want to manage client traffic. So if you want to manage your client traffic, so policy stuff or client uploads, then you put a secondary site. If you don't care about it, if you think you have enough bandwidth to support however many clients you have for policy, content location, and data uploads, go with the DP. If you don't think you have that enough bandwidth to manage that, or you need more controls, then the secondary site. Now, as far as the how many clients you can have and how much data that's generated and so on, that we've never come up with in 2007 or in vNext. Somebody from out in the field, we created a spreadsheet back in the SMS 2003 days. It was an Excel spreadsheet that was created by our documentation team. That had, you go and punch in some numbers and type of links you had, it would go out there and develop a hierarchy for you, plan one out. And I did a webcast way back in SMS 2003, it's called Advanced Client Network Traffic Analysis, where I looked at all the different traffic patterns from SMS 2003 advanced clients, your policy requests, content location, policy downloads, inventory data, and so on. And I had all that stuff in there, but we never did anything in the 2007 space, and I never did anything with that webcast updated. So we don't really have anything. There was somebody out in our field that took that old spreadsheet and did their own upgrade of that spreadsheet for vNext numbers based on, or excuse me, 2007 numbers based on their own testing, but it was never blessed by the product group, so we never reviewed it, we never did the testing. So honestly, you're on your own to figure out, you do your own analysis to see how much bandwidth you have available, and then just do some monitoring on your clients to see what kind of traffic you have. The 2007 client traffic is very, very similar to the 2003 client traffic. So if you can find that webcast up on the TechNet webcast site that I did on, I would guess it's August 2003, but I have no idea. I'll just say, it was August 17, 2003, I did that webcast. So,
Actually, it was 2004.
Pardon?
It's 2004.
Sam said it was August 17, 2004. So if you can find that, those numbers are pretty standard for the 2007 client. The only place where we did anything was we created a white paper on migrating from SMS 2003 ITMU over to 2007 software update points in WSUS. And in there we had traffic patterns, because they're quite a bit different with WSUS than they were with ITMU. So that's the closest we have to any guidance, unfortunately. I don't know if we're coming up with anything for vNext. I've not heard of anything, so hopefully. But so I would just talk to your network guys and see what they think about the pipe that you have. And if you already have a DP there or a secondary site there, ask them if they think how you guys are doing. And normally they'll let you know if you're not doing good with their pipes. You've probably already heard about it. So if they're not complaining, then I would say you're probably okay. And if they're not complaining about a secondary site with no MP in there right now, then that's a good indication you can just get rid of the secondary site entirely and just put a DP there because you have the exact same capabilities. But if they are complaining that, yeah, when you push down that location down there, I'm seeing a spike in traffic after your content's down there, that's clients pulling policies and content location and forwarding up their status data. Then, yeah, put a secondary site in there because you have the upward control stuff. So yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's all we got.
Well, the inference seems to be that what you were saying earlier on about taking a copy of your existing SCCM database, that hardware inventory, historic hardware inventory and so on isn't copied across. So although the objects are, for collections and ad-
Correct.
you know, for that packages and stuff.
Right.
The actual data isn't really copied across at all.
The inventory data, correct. Inventory compliance data, nothing's brought over at all.
Okay.
So just the metadata about the admin objects that clients would use.
So does that again mean that clients will get new resource IDs when they go into their database? I guess they would do because they're new clients anyway, effectively.
Well, if it's resource IDs, yes. So, in fact, I can show you, and don't ask me to explain it. I can't really explain it, but let me just show you. This is my. Oh, we can go look at the status of our other client that was installing. Wait till Cliff and Sam get out of here, so we give you the guys a good detailed information. So you guys are used to resource IDs that are like 1, starting at 1 and moving up from there. Resource ID, 167777218. And all your resource IDs now are going to be like that. And it's because of the fact that we're replicating everything everywhere, and we actually replicate GDRs everywhere until they become clients, and then they are only in the CAS as well as the assigned site for the client. So there's a special ID for a site, a primary site, and then there's for what site it is in the hierarchy, for the primary site, and a bunch of others. I have to go look it all up and see what it is. But yeah, all your resource IDs now are going to be 167, somewhere in that environment. Now, the one caveat there is if you take I think if you, come on, number, and then go to its properties, this guy's not a client, so remember correctly, his resource ID is, yeah, way different. And I have an email that explains it all, about why we do that, and how we do that, how we come up with those numbers. And I've had you have to take these numbers and look at the appropriate bits of the number, and then convert them over to decimal, and then from hex and everything else to figure out what it is. So it's a complicated thing. So resource IDs are changing dramatically between the two. All right, let's go look at our client and see what he thinks. Yeah, he's still running, and very likely it's, wouldn't be surprised if .NET Framework is still running there. Oops. So he may not get it. Anyway, okay. Object, last thing we have is objects, or migration specifics and content. So software updates. Again, we can't migrate over any software update stuff unless you have a software update point with the exact same metadata over there. Objects will get lost. So the best thing to do is the WSUS util. Export on the old site, your 2007 WSUS box, run that command, get the CAD file results, take the CAD file over to your VNext stuff, and do the WSUS util import. And that way you'll have the appropriate data over. Update lists are migrated to update groups. Update deployments become deployments. Software update packages are still deployment packages. Right now in beta 1, we don't migrate over templates, software update templates. We're looking at that for beta 2. Software distribution, your packages and programs are migrated over to packages and programs. So nothing changes there. We're not doing any migration over to applications. Big thing to do is make sure you're using UNC mappings, because as you migrate over your packages, and if you go look at the source location of those packages, and data source, directory on site server, C:\lab files /SMS toolkit. That might have worked for your 2007 server, but there is no C:\lab files SMS toolkit on my VNext site server. Keeps the exact same hard-coded path. So unless you want to recreate all your content over on your site server, use UNCs so that the path will be valid and I can go ahead and modify things. So we want you moving away from hard-coded local drive on site server to UNCs. In fact, when you create an application, in VNext, we won't let you use a direct path. You have to use a UNC. Packages you can still do local drive on site server, but for applications you have to use a UNC in VNext. So you might want to start looking at that now. AppV, if you're using our R2 or R3 integration today, there is no migration in beta 1 from a virtual package over into our beta 1. In beta 2, we will take the virtual package from 2007 and recreate it as an application with a application virtualization deployment type in beta 2. But we're not doing that in beta 1. So you have to recreate stuff in beta 1 if you're playing around for your virtual applications. And then we only support AppV 4.6. So make sure you have the AppV 4.6 client installed. in beta 1 and also in beta 2. Will require AppD 4.6, which you need anyway for Windows 7 and 64-bit clients. OS deployment, OS image package, task sequences, drivers, driver packages, we migrate those over. We don't migrate over your custom boot or your default boot images because of the new wake. And beta 1, we won't convert the client install package. As you know, when you do deployment at OSD, every system becomes a ConfigMgr client, and so we have this client install package. So we don't migrate that over because that's going to be pointing to old binaries, 2007 SP2 binaries probably, and you have to recreate the package in the vnext, point to the vnext binaries.
Wally, do you know what's happening with MDT? If you migrate a task sequence over at the moment that you've used the MDT to build, there's no MDT integration, and that will farm out when you then try to load it in.
Correct. Today we have zero support for MDT. They and we are working on that.
So is that going to continue the MDT integration to ConfigMgr? Because it has UDI and all that kind of thing built in.
Right. So the MDT team, I think, it just recently announced their vnext plans, what they have for the next release. But the last I heard is they're still planning on having a value add beyond what we do in the box. So, yeah, so I'm expecting that there still will be MDT. No support for migration today. We're not sure if we're going to have support for it maybe too. We're still working on that. Settings management, we can migrate over your CIs and baselines as you saw. The one caveat there is uninterpreted configuration items are not migrated over. And what uninterpreted means is that you can go to use third-party tools like the select stuff. And I'm not saying they do uninterpreted, but you can use third-party tools, or we have a toolkit as part of our ConfigMgr 2007 toolkit, DCM authoring tools. Sometimes with third-party tools, or when you don't create your CIs in our console, stuff doesn't render properly in our console. And if it doesn't render properly in our console for configuration items, if you can't display them properly in our console, then we can't migrate it over. If you do render it properly in our console, then they're interpreted items and we can go ahead and migrate them over. So as long as they appear here in the 2007 console successfully, then they should be able to migrate it over because they're interpreted. If they don't appear there, then they're uninterpreted, we won't migrate them over. You can directly import config packs that you have today. So if you use their product or download any off the web, import them and create your own and save them out and so on. Those can be directly imported. We'll upgrade the schema from the 2007 schema to the vnext schema because it is different. Content migration, again, you can keep the DPs, the content on the DPs and the vnext clients and 2007 clients and share them. Then you upgrade, which again puts them into the new database. Reports, as of right now, we're not migrating reports. So today it's the standard web reporting engine on a reporting point, and we're not doing that anymore. But even in right now, if you had SRS integration with the R2 or R3 products, we're not migrating those reports over. We're looking to see if we're going to do something in beta 2 for SRS to SRS, but we're not sure. At worst case, you should be able to go to SRS and export your report into RDL format and then import it into vnext. Beta 1, we're not migrating over customizations to Asset Intelligence Catalog. We're looking at that for beta 2. Software metered rules. Search and admin folders, there's not a lot in beta 1. They'll be fully implemented in beta 2. Search and admin folders. So much better for you. We'll migrate those over in beta 2. Software update templates we're looking at. Boundaries we don't do in beta 1, we definitely will do in beta 2. And I'm not sure we're going to do queries at all in beta 2 either. So preparing, you've seen all these values before. Go Windows Server 2008 64-bit. You can use Windows Server 2008 R2 64-bit, SQL 2008 SP1, and CU6. Again, in R beta 2, you can have the R2 release of SQL 2008. Standard DPs can run on Windows Server 2003 32-bit with limited functionality. That means SMB only. So only SMB deployments. No bits, no multicast, no AppD streaming, no single instance store, and all the cool stuff. And then clients, we talked about the client platforms numerous times. So coexistence. So as you're doing, very few of you are TAP customers, so you don't have to worry about this as you're playing around in your lab, but you're going to have boundary overlap right now because most people don't have completely isolated environments that they can set up for vNext and then 2007. So what I said with one of my top customers is no boundaries in the vNext environment. Migrate over your clients and directly assign them to the vNext site without boundaries, and just make sure you enable slow network support in all your deployments. Everything works great. And then when you get all the clients migrated over, remove the boundary from the 2007, add it to the VNext environment so you can stop doing this slow network boundary stuff. Never use SMS site code equals auto in an upgrade scenario. I would never use it at all. The reason being, this is my laptop. It's assigned to a Redmond site. I'm sitting here in London, and we do dog food, which is testing our internal versions of the products. We're on beta 2 versions. And let's say they push out a new beta 2 version of dog food today. I'm sitting here in London. If they do SMS site code equals auto, guess what? I get reassigned to the London site. And I don't want to be managed by the London site. Nothing against you guys. But you guys make fun of Wally. So I want to be managed by Redmond. So if I do SMS site code equals RED for Redmond, I'll always be assigned to the correct site even while I'm traveling. So that's why I stopped using SMS site code equals auto after like the first time I tested it in 2007. So I would never use it. Collections. Today in 2007, you can create a single collection that has both user rules and system rules, device rules in the same collection. We don't allow that in VNext. Either a user collection, which includes groups, or a system collection or a device collection. If you have collections in 2007 that have mixed rules, we will not migrate them over. So you have to clean out your collection so you're not having mixed object types in the same collection.
Does that mean in VNext you can have an advertisement that has 2 collections assigned to it?
No.
Do you have to have 2 advertisements for that scenario?
Correct, but that's one way. The other way is, and I'm not running beta 2, so I can't really show you this, but what we're doing in beta 2 is our collection structure is changing quite a bit. Sub-collections go away in beta 2. And what we're allowing you to do is you create a collection, and then you guys always have this pilot process where you roll out your advertisements. You have a small pilot group, then you expand that out. A lot of times you use linked collections for that. So you have a collection, you link another collection to it, so it expands the scope, and link another collection. So what we're doing in beta 2 is, so I'll just say, I'll say Cardinal Place. And there's 2 buildings here. So I deploy to the first one, when it's all set and tested out, working fine. I go to my collection properties. I got it. Where's properties? Hang on. Oh, scroll down. No, not there. Maybe I can't do property. Oh, there it is. There we go. I knew it was going to be there somewhere. And for membership rules, we have 2 new collection types. So you have include collection. So you can basically, on the fly, do a linking of one collection to another collection. So I deployed to Cardinal Place, and now I link in or on demand pull in building 2, or maybe then pull in TVP, and it's specific for this deployment. And then I can also do an exclude collection. So I can say London, and then exclude Cardinal Place. A couple of new things happening. So that'd be the other way you would do it, is they call them composable collections. So I compose a collection on the fly and do my targeting to that root collection, which hits all the composed collections inside of it.
Is there any AD schema update for VNext?
Any what?
AD schema update?
No. As of beta 1, there's no AD schema updates. The exact same schema as in 2007 product. Don't know if it's going to change for beta 2, but as of right now, nothing. Because we are talking about doing some stuff in boundaries so that you don't have overlapping boundary scenarios. So there's possibly going to be some changes there. We talked about the packet source. Make sure that the VNext site server can talk to the 2007 site server, because we use SQL and WMI to go query the objects there. So make sure that happens. And virtualization, what that note means is, let's say you're like my one tap customer that didn't have a second physical box. So he flattened and reloaded and lost all of his old data. What you could do, however, is keep your 2007, set up a VNext virtual environment, do your migration over to the VNext virtual environment, migrate all your data over and clients and so on, and then flatten and reload your box, make it a VNext site, and then in beta 2, so by the time most of you are going to do anything, we should have exporting capabilities from all the feature areas. So export all your stuff from the 2007 virtual or VNext virtual into your VNext full environment, physical hardware environment. So basically doing a repurpose of the same hardware without losing your data by using virtualization in the middle. It's kind of a double migration, but it lets you use the same hardware if you want to go hardware.
Does that suggest that you're not supporting VNext on the virtual environment?
That is not suggesting that at all. We absolutely support the entire VNext environment, just like 2007 virtualized. So yes, that was the next thing I was going to state, so nobody got confused. So you need me to it. We absolutely support everything virtualized. In fact, a lot of people are going that way.
Is that still both Hyper-V and VMware?
Theoretically, will be the SVVP program.
Yeah.
So everything is supported there, yes,
Okay.
is what our expectation is. And then the, we talked about that, reports have to be recreated. The last thing, there was a slide in here, where'd it go? Oh, no duplicate site codes. So no duplicate site codes. So when you're recreating your VNext environment, you have to create brand new site codes. Same, 3-character limitation. But you can't use, in my case, my 2007 environment is MCM. I can't use MCM for my VNext site code. We won't map between two sites with the same site code. So you get the experience and joy of creating a brand new hierarchy of 3-character site codes that was better than the previous time you goofed it up. So there. So yeah, you have to create brand new site codes in your VNext environment. So. Okay.